Considering the sexy scenes he's read, totally 18 plus. Don't you know who you're talking to?
Daddy. Strength to hold in what is trying to get out. Okay. Temptation.
He lowers himself down between my legs and watches me closely as he pushes himself inside me. I cry out, moaning with pleasure, uncaring how feral and out of control I sound. Kyle moves slowly at first, kissing me so softly that I feel like I might explode. Then he pulls back and slams into me hard.
I shall save you all from spiders. I'm an expert trapper and releaser. That's so sweet that you release them. I murder them.
Hello. There we go. Okay. I know what happened. It's fine. Everything's okay. Don't panic. Let me start that over. Hi. Good evening. Stump Mama's Mama typed first, but Mr. Thomas claimed first. Good job. Yes. And our author's here on time, as she so stated. Well done. The final chapters this evening, everybody. How will it end? I don't know. Newbie's here. Hi. Hi, friend. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. I think I got it. And yes, here we are. Sunday. Where has it gone? I don't know. Oh boy. What is today's date? The 10th. Since it is the 10th, I thought I would pick out a puzzle that suits the time of year. I know that's probably difficult to see, but it's basically an advent calendar. Looks like this one's made out of wood, perhaps. Yeah, I think so. But anyway, you have a wooden advent calendar you can do if you want. It's there, it's ready. Oh. Gosh, I apologize. Let's see if we can get those out of the way right now. Have my water. I already drank my tea. So, no tea, because I got ahead of the game and I made it too soon, and therefore I had to drink it too soon. So, it is what it is. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. I can't believe we're going to finish the book. I don't know how long it's going to take exactly, but we're going to do it. So I'm not going to waste any time, okay? No more chit chat. We're going to read. We're going to read and we're going to yawn. It's fine. I'm just getting you in the mood for sleep. That's all. Okay. Why is that so much bigger? Let's just shrink that a wee bit. There we go. Nailed it. It's exciting. I'm sure it is. I have no doubts. Just for a point of reference, actually, before I do start reading. So after we finish this book, I'm not going to start the next book until January. There will still be streams. I just don't want to start a new book and then have to break for however long before we keep going. Because as you've seen, it can be a bit, nutty. So I'm still going to stream. We're going to do some Power Washer Simulator and stuff like that. There just won't be a book until January after this one finishes. I'm sorry, newbie. I am sorry. I had to make a decision, and I chose to postpone just because I didn't want to break it up and
That tasted purple.
get a few chapters in and then go on hiatus for however long. And hi, Purple. Good to see you. All right. So that was my announcement. I will say it again at the end of stream, just in case. But that is the plan. Okay. Excuse me. That was a massive yawn. I had to cover that up. Okay. We're on chapter 18. Page 173. Yawn train? I know, it's terrible. I haven't yawned all day. As soon as I sit down to read, boom, yawn. 2 weeks from tonight is Christmas Eve. I know. It's crazy. Must have been a busy day. It was. It was. Lots going on today. Okay, one more. I'm fine, I swear. Jeez. She'll be 14? Well, that's fun. Good for her. All right. Ladies and gentlemen. Chapter 18. Yeah. Okay. Janelle drifted. Not asleep, yet not quite awake. She heard the woman introduce herself as Chris Jordison, heard Jack introduce himself and Janelle. Chris told the two men they were welcome to use her bath while she rounded up something to eat. Then sleep overcame Janelle, and she remembered nothing more until someone shook her awake sometime later. "Hey, babe. Wakey wakey." Jack's voice cut through the haze of sleep. "Shower's nice and hot if you want to take one." She stretched, testing the wounds on her body. There was no pain, but there were yawns. She sat up, taking care, and rubbed her eyes. Jack smiled at her. "What?" she asked. "You are so beautiful." "Get out of here." She smirked and pushed him. He laughed. Oh, how she loved his boyish laugh. She looked around the room, imagining it as her own. One day, she thought, one day this will all be over, and we can settle down. I hope. Mama House Gaming. I'm gonna stop yawning eventually. I swear to God. We need a yawn counter? Yeah, probably. Hi, Mama House Gaming. How are you? How are you? What you thinking about? She smiled at him. Nothing. Nothing at all. Could you help me to the shower? Is that like code? Nope, it isn't. A little while later, Janelle settled herself at the dining room table where Chris and Orion chatted like old friends. Jack brought her a plate of food and a glass of iced tea. How are you feeling, Miss Janelle? The older woman asked. God, why? Really? Okay. Thanks for that. Waking me up? Okay, thank you. Much better, thank you, Janelle replied. It had amazed her while showering to discover her wounds had almost completely healed. She looked at the plate in front of her. It was piled high with various fruits and vegetables, all roasted, with a slice of buttery crusted bread on the side. She picked up a half strawberry and bit into it. The sweetness was amazing. It's an honor to finally meet you, Janelle said after wiping juice from her lips with a napkin. The older woman nodded. Let's dispense with the formalities. Time is short, and I have much to tell you. May I ask a question? Something had been bugging her the whole time she'd showered. Of course. Chris put her hand on the table and steepled her fingers. What did you mean when you said nothing can kill Orion? Orion cleared his throat at the mention of his name. Chris looked shocked and turned to him. You haven't told her. Well, you see... His face flushed. Chris sighed and shook her head. A small smile played on her lips. Orion is one of my original trustee soldiers. Before the program, we did modifications to the men themselves. There were 20 volunteers for the original batch. That was what, 40 years ago? Janelle sucked in a breath. Wait. Orion, you were a trustee soldier? Why didn't you tell me? That's a part of my life I'd rather forget. I don't understand. Just how old were you? 25. You're over 60? She nearly choked on the strawberry she just popped into her mouth. Orion shrugged. I guess. Chris cut in. When we made the first round of trustee soldiers, we mistakenly made them hard to kill. Damn near impossible to kill, truth be told. Samuel, my husband and Tourette's father, terminated the project after a minor rebellion. He wanted to kill them all, but they escaped and dispersed. Despite his fears of an uprising, we heard nothing from them. Until your son took it upon himself to eradicate us, Orion interjected. Yes, I heard about that, and I am sorry. He's the reason I went into hiding, of course. I made the damn program for him, and he accused me of sabotaging it once we had a system failure. Before I departed, I left him a little surprise, in case his ego got the best of him. The Enlightenment program, Janelle said. So it was you. There was something wrong with that boy. He was 18 when his father was assassinated. It did something to him. He became obsessed with the program. It was in its infancy back then. I became just a programmer, not his mother. He trusted no one. My husband was a good leader, much loved by the people. They prospered under him. Tourette. He feared the people. He feared who might be hiding among them. After all, a stranger assassinated his father. He thought it was one of the original soldiers. He used Trustee not to help the people and keep them safe, but to keep them in their place, as he often said. And he developed the dogs to track down the rogue soldiers. He wanted to destroy them. Destroy them all. They became the marked, Janelle breathed. Precisely. He hunted them down over the next several years. In the meantime, he wanted a soldier who could not only handle the marked, but who he also had complete control over. Thus, the program was born. And the Enlightenment? When I finally finished the program, I wanted to disappear, as if I feared for my life. But I couldn't leave him to rule the world unchecked. So I infiltrated the program and planted the Enlightenment file deep within. It would activate if Tourette's control became unbearable. If the soldiers started doubting Tourette's intentions, the program would enlighten them and send them to me. It was my hope that the first one or two would make it out safely, but I know that was not to be. He caught on quickly. But I hid the file so well he'd never be able to find it, and he depended on the program so much that he couldn't shut it down because of a few rogues. Thank you for the lurk, B. He thinks it's someone on the inside. He questions a few of the Enlightened, trying to get them to tell him. I sat in on one interrogation. It wasn't pretty. Janelle suppressed a shudder. He ended up killing the guy. And you're the first to have actually escaped. It was a statement, but Janelle took it as a question. Yes, I had help. A great dragon. Jinshin, Chris said. Janelle nodded. Jinshin is the last of an ancient breed from a faraway land. He discovered me hiding out here, and he lent his magic to fix everything up, to get everything running. He told me about you. I was hoping you'd be the one to make it to me. I don't understand. Why didn't he just bring me here, or at least tell me how to get here? Because you had to do it on your own. I hope that you be able to rally the citizens to your side, and that you get to experience the world for yourself, to see what you were fighting for. It was also a test, to make sure you were strong enough for what I'm about to ask you to do. Ah, here it comes. And what is that? To infiltrate HQ and bring Trustee down. And how do you expect me to do that? She picked up another strawberry. Why, child, the answer is already inside you. The right spike that hit you flooded you with healing nanites. The left one infected you with a virus. And that's chapter 18. Sometimes going back and forth between character voices is kind of hard. But I love it. Okay. Chapter 19 is on page 178 in our book. Here we go. Janelle's heart stopped. The half-eaten strawberry dropped from her hand. A virus? You put a virus inside me? Don't fret too much. Hey, Amlas, what's up? That's why you needed to rest, so the virus could safely contain itself in a file within your program. It's not meant for you. Your new mission is to hack into the main computer at headquarters. It has to be the main, not a remote unit, and use your port... And use your port to transfer the virus to the computer. But my port is broken. The computers don't recognize it. Chris smiled a dangerous smile. Oh, but they do. Jack told me you enlightened him yourself, no? When Janelle nodded, she continued. The computer knows you're here, knows you're there, but no one can access your program without a special key. And only the owner of that specific program has the key, namely you, of course. That folder that appeared when you signed on manually while connected? It's not just for enlightening. Left-clicking on it will do that, but right-clicking? Right-clicking will open a set of options. One of those options is a virus release. Oh wait, that was Chris. Gosh darn it. I didn't realize it switched characters. But what if I can't log on manually? I've done it twice, so surely Tourette has found out by now and deleted me from the program. He can delete you all he likes. Once enlightened, a shadow file is made. It's undetectable and only you can access it. I made sure anyone enlightened will be able to access the program, no matter what precautions Tourette took. It's not an issue. Now, if you're done eating, I'd like you to come with me. I have something to show you. You love the YouTube video? Thanks. I appreciate it. Put a lot of effort into that video. Could have been better, but that's me critiquing me. But I'm happy with what I did. Janelle looked at her half-eaten salad, suddenly too curious and excited to eat. I can always eat later. She got up from the table and followed Chris out of the dining room. Jack and Orion came as well. They walked through the kitchen to a door that led to another room at the back of the house. My lab, Chris said, and swung the door inward. The room contained 2 long counters of computers and various hardware. Cabinets of computer parts and accessories lined the walls. At the back of the room, 4 large windows looked out toward the impenetrable forest behind her house. Between the trees and the house was a small landscaped yard. Janelle was immediately drawn to the yard. In the growing dusk, a small herd of deer grazed on the manicured grass. They visit me every evening, Chris said, standing beside her. One of the deer lifted its head and looked at them. They're beautiful, Janelle breathed. Jack, busy looking at the computer, said, Where did you get all these parts? I don't recognize most of them. Jinshin brings them to me. The puzzled look on Jack's face made her laugh. You don't think Bravia is the only land on this world, do you? What? No, of course not. He sounded insulted, and Janelle laughed. I know there are lots of other lands out there. I've seen their ships visit our trade cities. There's so much more out there than places like Korgan and Estania, Chris said. Places you could only dream of. Cities many times the size of our trade cities, with buildings 10 times as tall. Places where electricity flows from house to house and lights up streets as bright as day. Cities run fully automated. Golden cities, and ones located deep within tremendous forests surrounded by waterfalls so high the plunge would kill you. No way. Jack's jaw dropped. Yes, Tourette, in his paranoia, has isolated us from the rest of the world. He allows only a chosen few to trade with us, and he watches goods like a hawk. She shook her head. It's a shame what he's done. He hoards technology for himself. We are a laughingstock to the rest of the world. I'm hoping we can change that. She walked over to a computer and turned it on. He allows only the most primitive electrical services to be used by the people, while HQ runs on the latest technology. He drives around in cars while forcing his citizens to use horses and wagons. He only paves and tends the roads to the trade cities. All other roads? Well, I'm sure you've seen them. Most are nothing but ruts. But why? Janelle asked. Why has he done this to his people? I never understood that. Because he fears them. He's so afraid that the people will rise against him that he gives them little. After the assassination of his father, all he saw in the citizens was the marked. Or he's just fucking nuts, Orion offered. Chris laughed. Yes, there's that too. Back when my husband ruled, Baravia was headed toward modern technology, just like the rest of the world. Tourette shut that down. He had no successor, Jack said. What will happen if we bring him down? The virus will put the program in sleep mode and release all the soldiers from its mind control. Someone will need to establish themselves as the new leader. She turned to Janelle. I am hoping it will be you. Janelle was taken aback. Me? I'm no leader. Oh, but you are. The people adore you. They have been waiting for something like this for a long time. Your name is all over the rebel radio stations. It's true, Orion said. I heard it myself while in Waterton. You are truly a hero of the people. I'll let you listen to the radio a bit later, Chris said, typing something on the computer. But first, we have something to do. She pulled out a plug from the computer. Here, attach this to your port. Let me show you what I need you to do. Janelle took the plug and inserted it in the port behind her ear. Now, sign on like you normally would, manually. Janelle entered her username and password. The trustee homepage came up. Her special folder showed up in the bottom left corner. Right-click on your file. Doing so brought up a list of options. Change password, upload program updates, download file, more options. Click Download File. A new window opened, asking for a password to continue. We can't go any further here, but I have the password for you. I'll prompt you after that. Nothing difficult. You'll actually have 2 different passwords to enter here. I'll give them to you in a minute. After you enter the first password, you'll have to find and click on file SKJ49. That's the virus file. You'll double-click it. It will ask you to wish to download it, and you click yes. It will then ask for the second password. After you enter it, the download will occur. Shouldn't take but a few seconds. Then it will ask you if you wish to run the file. Now listen. This next part is extremely important. Immediately after clicking yes, you'll need to unplug from the computer. If you don't, the virus will infect your program and could shut it down. It's very likely that doing so will kill you. Can't I just unplug before clicking yes? No. You must stay connected throughout the whole process or else it won't work. our antivirus programs won't stop it. It would take a lot of work on your part to contain it. I made this one nasty and aggressive virus. Just remember to unplug right after you click yes, and you'll be okay. I purposefully put a 2-second delay on the virus's release. What if the main computer blocks the virus? Jack asked. It won't. The first password shuts down the antivirus program. Nice, Jack said with a laugh. I've had many years to plan this and tweak it. I hack the computer daily, and my son has no idea. Every time I saw some Enlightened, my hope grew that I'd be able to put my plan into action. Now, it will. She paused as tears formed in her eyes. If I could have done it myself, I would have. Unfortunately, the program doesn't allow for remote downloads. The one thing I haven't been able to bypass. That's why I'm so glad you've come. She laid a hand on Janelle's arm. It was warm and reassuring. I will do everything in my power to complete this mission, Janelle said. I swear on my life. Good, good. Now, let me get those passwords for you. And that was chapter 19. Krez redeemed almost first. Good job. So now they've got a mission. They're gonna take down HQ. Ow. I think I do that every stream. I smack my headphones into the ring right here. It's wonderful. Stop listening to me, watch. What are we reading? We are reading the Enlightenment virus, as you can see above me, right there. If you click or type !virus, you will get a link to our author's page where you can see this book and quite a few others. So feel free to check that out. Be my guest. We're about to start chapter 20. Page 184. I'm going to take one more sip, though. All right. Here we go. Oh, real quick. Who here thinks Tourette is gonna... Well, let me back up. In a story like this, I can see it being played out like a movie in my head. And usually in these types of movies, somebody dies. Now, the typical bad guy could die, Tourette. Or Chris, who is the program maker, the British lady I gave a voice to. You know, in her best efforts, she could die. Janelle's asked to be the new leader, so I don't think she's going to die, but maybe Jack does to save Janelle so that she can be a leader. I don't know. But usually, somebody dies. Now, I could be wrong, and none of them could die. And, you know, they all live happily ever after. And that'd be great. But I feel like if I were writing this, someone's got to die. Unfortunately, it's just how I roll. Well, I hope you know. But if anyone has any guesses in chat, feel free to spam them so that we can figure out who's right. My guess, it's going to be I mean, I feel like saying Tourette is an obvious one, but It's either Tourette or Jack. I'm not sure. Anyway, I'll let you think about that while I keep reading. You're going to guess the lead programmer, so that would be Chris, the lady that wrote it. Well, I think that's a fair guess, honestly, Krez. All right. Oh, Krez, all of the reading of this book is on my YouTube, which is down below in my About section. So if you want to actually hear the book at any point, feel free to do so. Kilobyte subscribing for 4 months. My goodness, thank you so much. That was super kind of you. Now we have 5 push-ups on the board. I can type. Very well worth it. Well, I appreciate it. Awesome. I will for sure give it a look when I decide to wind down for the night. Listening to your buttery smooth, soothing voice. Well, stop it. I appreciate it. Kind words, kind words. All right, chapter 20, page 184. Janelle sat in a chair on the front porch of the little cabin. Jack sat next to her, staring across the front lawn. Darkness had descended a few hours ago. Orion and Chris were inside. Now and then, Janelle heard one of them burst into laughter as they shared old stories. They seemed to know each other intimately. In the background, Freedom Radio played. A slight breeze ruffled Janelle's hair, causing it to tickle her face. She brushed it. Wow, all of a sudden I can't read. She brushed at it absently. The night was peaceful. Crickets chirped and night birds called. For once, she felt calm, at peace, and safe. Are you sure you can do this? Jack's voice cut through the night sounds. She turned to look at him. His face creased with worry. Do I really have a choice? She asked. You and I both know this needs to be done. But why you? Why not someone else? Who? You? Do you want to do it? His face turned red. No, I don't. She can wait for someone else. We'll go someplace safe, somewhere Tourette won't find us. And where would that be, Jack? Where in this godforsaken country could we hide where he wouldn't be able to find us? Here? I seriously doubt she'd allow us to stay. She's looking for heroes, not moochers. That's not what I mean. I mean, leave Bravia altogether. We could catch a ship from Voluvia or something. You know that would never work. The ships are under observance day and night to prevent that very thing. Besides, I don't want to run from this. I can't run from this. He sighed. I don't want to lose you, Janelle. He got up from his chair and sank to his knees in front of hers, taking her hands into his. She leaned over and kissed the top of his head. Another burst of laughter came from within the house. I know, she said, smiling at the thought of Orion having a good time inside. But if we don't do this, then things won't get any better. The people, the soldiers, neither one of them deserves this treatment. Besides, her voice fell to a whisper. I have my own reasons for wanting to do this. Do you know why I became enlightened, Jack? Did Tourette ever say anything to you about me? No. His voice sounded full of questions. She stared out over the dark shadow of the pond. It was a memory he suppressed. When we had sex in the shower of the wagon, it brought it all back. I didn't remember it all completely until then. A lump rose in her throat. Her vision blurred, and she blinked away the tears, trying to keep her composure. Jack stared into her eyes. What is it? What happened? She took in a deep breath, closed her eyes to collect herself. This was going to be hard. All these months, little bits of memory had been sneaking through. And when it finally manifested itself, she'd pushed it down, refusing to admit, even to herself, that it had even happened. Now here she was, knowing she couldn't hide it any longer, knowing it was a tale that needed to be told. Do you remember the Saturday before I became enlightened? Tourette had me drive him to Voluvia so he could watch a play the mayor had invited him to? Yes, I remember. Concern filtered into his voice. He frowned. After the play, Tourette wanted to go see the Vale Bells, said if he hadn't visited them in a while. It was within walking distance from the theater, so we left the car behind. There's a gap in the story here because I think what's happening is we're going back in time to that event. Jennifer, does this story, this little back in time, have any SA in it? I just wanted to double check. I think it does, like page 191. I think when I get to that part, because I did write it down, page 191, I'll try and figure out where it is on that page and then just kind of over the top. Just cause. It fades out. I don't go into detail. Okay. Alright, so now we're going into the memory. It had been warm that day and humid after a brief storm passed through while they watched the play. Janelle loved the smell of the wet sidewalks and asphalt drying in the hot afternoon sun. Tourette had been in a good mood, which was odd. Whether from the play, a hilarious comedy, or the fresh air, Janelle didn't know. The tower that housed the Vale Bells stood in a small grassy park near the shore. Shade trees dotted the landscaping. Benches scattered along a winding path that led past a few informational signs recounting the history of the bells. Janelle and Tourette took time to read each one, and even sat on a shaded bench to enjoy a couple of salted ice cream cones Tourette purchased from a much surprised and grateful vendor. Here, away from Trustee, away from his duties, Tourette had seemed, well, almost normal, charming even. He held out his arm and she slipped hers through it, thinking the gesture to be harmless and kind of cute. Tourette was twice her age. His frizzy black hair stuck out from the ever-present burgundy-red beret he wore on his head. His skin was dark and olive-toned, like most of northern Baravia's citizens, bearing a strong likeness to his father. Beside him, Janelle looked quite pale indeed. His eyebrows were bushy, his face pockmarked and clean-shaven. His eyes always reminded her of a pig's, small and beady. He squinted them when he talked. That said, he wasn't unpleasant to look at. He was slightly taller than Janelle, with a stocky build. He looked good in his khaki uniform. It was a great honor to be walking arm in arm with the leader of her country. They approached Vale Bell Tower. Ropes separated it from the little grassy park on one side and the sandy dunes leading to the ocean on the other. She heard the waves crashing on the shore. The cries of shorebirds filled the air. Vale Bell Tower was watched over by 2 guards whose job it was to let no one inside except the Vale nuns, silent, solemn women in gray habits and white-winged hats who kept the bells in impeccable working order. The guards, low-ranked, trustee soldiers who hadn't earned their programs yet, saluted when they saw Tourette and Janelle approach. Ooh, I forgot what I gave Tourette as a voice. I know it wasn't nice. But now I know he's older. At ease, lads, Tourette said after he and Janelle returned their salute. She tried to pull her arm out to salute properly, but he held it fast, so she was forced to give an awkward salute with her left hand. The soldiers didn't notice. They were young, maybe 13, and were in awe that their illustrious leader had come to visit them. What can we do for you, sir? One spoke up, his voice cracking. His blonde hair was damp under his helmet. Freckles spattered his face. Just a private tour, son, Tourette replied with a sly smile. Make sure we're not interrupted. Something in the tone of his voice made Janelle feel a little uneasy, but she kept what she hoped was a pleasant smile on her face. Of course, sir, the lad replied and unclasped the rope to allow them through. Tourette gave a tip of his hat and they entered. The tower had no outer door, just an open keystone arch entrance on each of its 4 sides. It was a huge square stone tower rising higher than any building in the city. The 3 bells were at the very top, each different from one another in size and constitution. If Janelle looked up, she could see them, 20 stories up, with their thick ropes hanging for several feet below them. A narrow wooden staircase started at her right and followed the wall up to a platform with a hole in the center for the ropes to dangle freely. In the center of the floor below her was a deep, round hole covered by a rusting screen. She heard water moving within. A breeze blew from the hole, cooling the air in the dark tower. They say the hole causes the bells to resound more deeply and loudly, Tourette said as she peered over the edge. At high tide, the water nearly reaches the top. During storms, it floods. Not very practical, if you ask me. Let's climb to the top. There's something I'd like you to see. She let him lead the way up the wooden steps. There was no railing, but the steps themselves were well taken care of. The nuns made sure of that. I'm sorry, no railing? 20 stories up? I think OSHA would have something to say about that. And a building inspector. But, that's just me. Janelle and Tourette reached the platform after several minutes of climbing. The vigorous activity made Janelle feel light on her feet. She was used to this kind of exercise. Tourette was a little out of breath, but not too much. His pig eyes danced, and he smiled at her. Something in that smile sent a dagger of ice down her spine. She forced herself to smile back. Warnings were going off in her head, but this was her leader. She was under his command. Even though her body was telling her to leave, her training insisted she stay. Come here, he said with an uncharacteristic laugh, and skirted around the 3 huge bells in the center of the room. She followed him to a large, open window facing the sea. The afternoon sun lit up the water in a blaze of fire. Along the shore, children played in the surf while their parents watched from blankets on the sand. Everywhere she looked, shore and seabirds flew and waded and floated. To her left, Janelle saw where the wharf started, with piers and docks extending out to the sea. Boats floated in their mootings, while men loaded and unloaded goods. I said mootings, moorings, good grief. Hello. Words are hard. It's beautiful, she breathed. Tourette came up behind her and put an arm around her waist, pulling her toward him. Isn't it? He whispered in her ear. Master General, please, she said, and tried to pull away. He made her nervous, uncomfortable. She thought of Jack and suddenly wished he were here. What was Tourette doing? He wouldn't let her go. Come, he whispered, over here. He maneuvered her to the stone wall beside the window and held her there. When he tried to touch her face, she turned her head away. Her program was screaming for her to fight, but she knew she could not strike out against her leader. I am a betrothed woman, she said, averting her gaze. Ah, yes, I know. Jack Arrington, is it? A fine lad. He'll make a wonderful colonel one day. But you? I have greater plans for you. Thank you. Thank you. And hello. Hello, Adamantine. You are a tremendous soldier. Obedient, faithful, strong. Janelle, I won't lie to you. I am getting older. My time will be on before I realize. I need an heir. I've wasted too much time already. I fear my enemies are closing in. I need someone to carry on my legacy, and I'm certain you can bear a child for me. Janelle, I will have you for my bride. Wow. How are you? Doing good. Thank you very much. I hope you are as well. I hope you've had a good weekend. Well, that was very forward of the man. Sheesh. Her eyes grew wide. Her heart hammered in her chest. All the while, her program screamed at her. She felt dizzy, faint. Janelle couldn't answer him right away. She couldn't even think straight. I need some air. She mumbled and pushed him away. She turned and leaned on the stone windowsill. Far below her, families laughed and birds called, but she could barely breathe. I cannot, she whispered. I cannot marry you. A little louder this time. You misunderstand, he said. I did not ask. I am giving you an order, officer. She shook her head and refused to meet his eyes. Below, the gentle surf rocked children on rafts. She wished she were among them. Tourette grabbed her and forced her to face him once more. Her program broke free of her rein and sprang to life. Don't touch me, she hissed. He raised his hand to slap her, but she caught his hand. He chuckled and broke her hold, forcing her hands to her side. Do you really think you can fight me? He asked. His own program flared green. I have the most sophisticated and powerful updates available. I would crush you. His words ended in a cruel sneer. He pushed himself against her, pinning her to the windowsill. The stone dug painfully into her back. Tears streamed from her eyes. You can't make me do this. The words came out between clenched teeth. He grabbed her chin and forced her face closer to his. She smelled seafood, hors d'oeuvres of his breath, on his breath. "Officer, I can make you do whatever I want. I'm in complete control of you." He released her chin and started fumbling the buttons on her dress pants. "Undo mine," he said. "No, please. Don't make me do this. Don't, sir. I beg of you." She started sobbing. Fear clenched her heart. Her program screamed in her ears for her to flee. He withdrew a small plug from his pocket. "You know what this is, don't you?" She bit her lower lip in despair and nodded. It was a total enslavement plug, usually reserved for AWOL or marked soldiers or those who had committed a crime. If he inserted it into her port, she'd be forced to do whatever he said. She tried to fight him, but he inserted it without issue. Once in, her program shut down and opened itself to his commands. He stood back with a malicious grin on his face. "Now, let's see what else we can make you do." From his waist, he removed his golden dagger and traced it up her torso. He stopped with the point at her throat. "This should be fun." And that is the end of the recap. Just so you know. Janelle stopped her tail and looked at Jack. He shook with fury. "I don't think you want to know what he made me do. What he did to me with the goddamn dagger," she whispered, and bowed her head. "Terrible, terrible things. Then he suppressed my memory of it. But before he did, he told me that come Monday, I'd get a program update. One that would make me subservient to him. One that would make me the perfect wife. Instead, I became enlightened." Jack's eyes smoldered. "That bastard. That fucking bastard. I'll kill him. I'll fucking rip out his guts and finger paint with them all over the fucking walls." He stood and beat his fists on the porch railing. Wood splintered. "Jack, calm down. You'll break something," Janelle pleaded, trying to pull him away from the railing. He shrugged her off and spun around. "He fucking raped you. He used his fucking enslavement plug and his dagger and..." He turned and hit the railing again. Then he hunched his shoulders and leaned against it. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "I was too ashamed. It's been eating away at me ever since I got the memory back. I want to kill him too. If we go through with Chris's plan, we can get our revenge and save our land. Fuck the land. I just want him dead. I tell you what. You do the hacker shit while I bash his fucking brains in. How about that?" The front door swung open. Janelle turned her attention to Chris with a guilty look on her face, expecting the older woman to chastise them for being too loud. Instead, Chris said, "I think you guys better come inside and listen to this." The blood had left her face. Tourette's attacked Sultan. And that is the end of chapter 20. Hydrate I will. Thank you very much. Delicious. Oh boy. It's getting crazy. I'm just trying to remember what page number this goes to. 225, and we're on page 193. So we got like 32 pages. Oh boy. Oof. All right. Let's keep this train a rolling. We are on chapter 21, page 193. Action-packed pages? I imagine so. I can't wait to be in a basement where I can have more soundproofing, and then I can really get into character. Like, even more so. Well, I'm off to go to bed. Take care, drink water, and eat food, please, and sleep as soon as you possibly can. Much love, take care. Good night, Animantine. Hope the beginning of your week is a good one. All right, here we go. Orion sat next to the radio, his head bent, his hands like claws in his hair. Chris rushed to him and laid a hand on his shoulder, but he did not move. Janelle and Jack took seats to listen. The radio broadcaster was in the middle of the story, but he repeated it after a few minutes. Ooh, let's see if I can do a good radio voice. Kind of like a news broadcaster, I guess. Wait, hold on. I have a thing for this. I think. Let's see. Where is it? Where is it? Okay, I thought I had a thing for this. Do I not? The heck did it go? Ah, here it is. This changes my voice a little bit. For those of you just joining us here at Freedom Radio, we have some dreadful news to report from Sawton. Trusty soldiers have invaded the town, destroying everything in their path. Dozens are presumed dead. The attack started an hour before dusk. Tanks and soldiers rolled in. They destroyed the commercial area first, just as most shopkeepers were closing for the night. The tavern is in flames as we speak. The sawmill itself has been razed to the ground, but they didn't stop there. The soldiers tore through the residential areas, shooting on sight. We have never seen such destruction. But why has Tourette ordered this? The word on the street is retaliation. It was discovered that someone had sabotaged the power plant, allowing the town to siphon more power than it had been granted. On top of that, one of the shopkeepers, Flavius Resender, had recently been suspected of housing fugitives. According to reports, he was shot dead while closing his shop this evening. There you go. That was my radio voice. No idea what it sounded like. Oh, gods. Janelle felt faint. If she had been standing, she would have fallen. Flavius. Oh, no. Jack scooted his chair closer to her, and she fell into him. My fault. This is all my fault. The report continued. Citizens all over Bravia are outraged by this show of power. They are taking to the streets in protest, and one person's name is repeated over and over. Janelle Grayson. If you are out there, if you are listening to this, Janelle, help us. Help us, please. Bravia is calling for a hero. Orion reached out and shut off the radio. I've heard enough, he said. At first light, we make for HQ. It's time to end this now. He shoved his chair back and headed for the back bedroom with Chris right behind him. Janelle forced herself to sit up straight. How are we going to do this? It'll take us 3 to 4 weeks to make it to HQ on foot. Even with horses, it'll take no less than 2. We've got the world on our side. We'll figure out something. It's time for us we retire as well. They had sleeping bags laid out in the dining room. Janelle had surrendered the bedroom back to Chris after recovering. Now, she crawled into the sack next to Jack. But she wasn't tired at all. She tossed and turned for an hour before giving up and getting up. She went out onto the front porch and watched the sky in the darkness. The moon had risen late, just now showing itself over the hedges. Its soft glow illuminated the trees surrounding them, and the partial disk reflected in the pool, whose waters were as still as the night. She sat in a chair. The night was peaceful, but Janelle was not. She could not keep Flavius off her mind. He'd risked so much to help her, and now one foolish act had cost him his life. Why hadn't she asked him to take all the horses with them? Or with them that night? Leaving the 2 trustee horses had been a fatal mistake. Thinking about it made her want to crawl into a hole and die. Flavius had believed in her, and now he was dead. The others probably were as well. She had ruined everything. So why did the people still love her? Why were they calling out to her for help? How was she ever going to pull this off? Sneak into HQ while they were on high alert like this? There was no way. I'm no hero, she whispered. The screen door creaked and Jack stepped out onto the porch. Hey, he said. I woke up, and you weren't next to me. Figured you were out here. He took a seat in the chair beside her. Couldn't sleep, she mumbled. She stared at her hands in her lap. They trembled. There was a speck of dirt under one nail. She picked at it. Listen, babe. This changes nothing. We have our objective, and we will complete it. No matter how long it takes. I know, She broke down into tears. Oh God, Jack. Flavius is dead and it's all my fault. He sighed. Come here. He reached out his hand. Come and sit with me. She took it and settled onto his lap. He palmed her face and made her look at him. It's not your fault. Flavius was well aware of the risk when he took us in. God. Why? Holy crap. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, were you bored? I was trying to be in character. Okay. I will add that push-up to the count in a moment. But the horses. Fuck the horses. They would have found us, horses or not. Janelle, you have to forget about that now. Keep your mind on task. If you give up now, then Flavius will have died for nothing. I'm not giving up. I just don't know how to proceed. It's so far away. She sniffed and wiped her nose on her shoulder. But you're so much closer than you were 6, 7 months ago. When you first started out, you didn't even know who you were looking for. Now you've found her. We only have one thing left to do right now, and we know exactly how to get there. He kissed her lightly on the lips. I've never known you to be a quitter. She kissed him back. Then something caught her attention. What was that? Off in the distance. Hounds. Geez, that's not her voice. Off in the distance, hounds bayed. No, not hounds. Dogs. Janelle shot to her feet with Jack right behind her. The barking was easily recognizable, and below the barking came a low rumble. She scanned the darkness but could see nothing yet. We need to warn the others. We've got to get out of here now. They darted back inside. Orion was already up and on alert. You heard them too, I reckon, he said, shouldering his pack. Quickly now. We ain't got much time. As Janelle and Jack gathered their things, Chris came out of the bedroom. I'm coming with you, she said, fully dressed with a pack of her own. Let me grab a few things from the lab. Hurry up, Orion growled. Didn't I just say we ain't got much time? Chris nodded and disappeared through the kitchen into the lab. How did they know? Janelle asked, looking out the window. She still couldn't see anything in the darkness. She turned to Orion. How are we going to get out of here? I'll think of something. Chris, are you ready yet? Time's a-wasting, woman. Just a moment, came a muffled reply. Janelle and Jack moved out onto the porch. The dogs were much closer now. Constant cracking accompanied the low rumble as some huge vehicle tore through the undergrowth. Oh, they brought a tank, Jack surmised. Probably the same one they used in Sawton. What are we gonna do? Janelle asked. Orion and Chris stepped out onto the porch. The first of the dogs came into view on the far side of the meadow's maze. Oh no, Chris said. We're too late. We'll never be able to outrun them. Can we escape through the forest to the back? Orion asked. She shook her head. The underbrush is too thick. There's no way through. Janelle watched in horror as the dogs crossed the meadow. And that brings us to chapter 22. Speaking of dogs, thanks again. God, that was so loud, it made me jump. And now we have 6 push-ups to do. Oh boy. Quick question. When I switched to the radio voice on my Yeti software, did it make a difference in how I sounded? Just curious, because I don't hear myself, obviously. Because that would be super annoying. I know there are some people that do that, but that would drive me absolutely nuts, hearing an echo of myself the whole time. You think it did? Okay. So not like a huge change, just subtle. I guess the second question then is, since you heard it, did it work? Like, did it fit the scene? Did I sound like I was on the radio? Because that was the point. Would have been kind of, not helpful had I not sounded like I was on the radio. So, just wanted to check. It fit well? Alright, cool. Keep that in mind for next time. Alright, chapter 22. Rexter, the third question is, on the scale of 1 to 10, how holly are you? What? You know, I should really get a sound alert for those push-ups. Stunt Mama's mama, add in push-ups. $16. I'm not sure what you mean, Rexter. Hi, by the way. Welcome in. How holly am I? Like a holly jolly Christmas. It's my favorite time of year. How holy are you? I don't know. 4 or 5? What are we scaling it against? I don't know. I mean, all my clothes have holes, otherwise I wouldn't be able to put my arms and legs through them. You know what I mean? Page 198. Chapter 22. By the way, if I hadn't mentioned this before, the dogs, kind of like the trustee, it's capital T on one end, capital T on the other. It's capital D, lowercase o, capital G. So you can't see that, obviously, so just wanted to make sure that was obvious. And as much as I would like to carry on the trustee kind of phrasing with the dogs, doji just doesn't quite sound correct. Anyway, moving on. The lead dog hit the meadow running. Just dog is correct. Yeah, I kind of figured. The first spring trap took it out with a yelp. Subsequent traps stopped the next 2 dogs. The rest of the pack halted. Their red eyes glowed in the darkness as their programs assessed the danger. The meadow won't hold them for long, Chris said. The first tank showed up, its cannon aimed at the tangle vine fence separating Trustee from Chris's house. A loud boom resounded. The fence was obliterated in a ball of smoke and flame. The tank rolled forward. Spring traps bounced harmlessly off its armored body. The dogs followed. A second tank came into view. Janelle's mind raced. What could they do? There was no escape in either direction. Back inside, Chris yelled over the noise. We'll go out the back. But you said there's no way through, Jack protested as they filed back inside. We'll make our own way. We can't just stand here and let them kill us. It's a fair point. I mean, logical. Then it came to her. The deer. Wait a second, Janelle said. There were deer in the backyard earlier. In order for them to get there, there must have been a path somewhere, right? Of course, Chris agreed. Well, let's find it. A boom shook the house as they darted into the lab. The only way out was through a window. Chris threw open the sash. Hurry! Through here! There came a smaller series of explosions, accompanied by yips and yelps. They've reached the lawn. My traps won't hold them for long, Chris said. They spread out and searched for an opening in the tangled mess of forest behind the house. Enhancing her vision, Janelle scoured the foliage near where she had seen the deer earlier. Something caught her eye. Just the slightest break in the underbrush. Upon closer inspection, she saw the hint of an animal trail. It would be a tight squeeze, but they had no other choice. Found it, she called out. And the world exploded around her. Something tremendous hit her from behind, knocking the air from her lungs and pinning her to the ground. She struggled to free herself, but to no avail. Her right arm was free, but her left was pinned beneath her. She turned her head to the right and realized she was trapped under a piece of the house. What piece, she didn't know, but the damn thing was in flames. She felt the heat through her clothing. She activated her strengthening program. With a hearty "Gah!" she tried to pull herself from beneath the rubble. Her body didn't shift at all. A shadow fell over her. Someone knelt beside her. Janelle! Oh, gods! Jack tried to lift the huge chunk that used to be Chris's house off of her, but it would not budge. Orion! Help! Help me! Janelle looked up at Jack, looked over the dense forest behind him. There was no way Jack could carry her through that, and she was pretty sure her injuries would require him to do so. Would require him to do so. Pronunciation. Blah. Moving on. A plan formed in her mind. Jack, she called to him. There's no time. Run. Get away while you can. He still fought to remove the debris. Orion joined him. In the background, she heard the rumbling of the tanks. Jack, just go. No, I won't leave you. His voice rose in panic. Orion, push up with me. It's too big, you won't be able to move it. It felt like her boots were melting. She tried to wiggle them, but couldn't even tweak them in the slightest. Listen to me, just go. They won't kill me, I'll be okay. Run, please, run. You can come after me later. This will be my way in, just go. He knelt beside her again, grabbed her free hand, and kissed her forehead. I can't leave you. You must. Just go, please. Trust me. You have to trust me. She saw Orion lay a hand on Jack's shoulder. She's right. Let's go. They might want her alive, but they'll kill us for sure. Jack sighed and squeezed her hand a final time. He and Orion melted into the forest with Chris close behind. Precious seconds passed. Trustee soldiers surrounded her. She screamed as the fire burned through her boots. We need her alive, came a booming voice, a familiar voice. Barlow. Move this thing off of her. Several soldiers got together and lifted the burning debris while Barlow pulled her out. She twisted around to see her boots on fire. One soldier beat out the flames with his jacket. Her boots were a charred mess, along with her pant leg. Even though the fire was out, her legs still burned like they were alight. Barlow tried to force her to her feet, but she could not stand and fell in a heap on the ground. Pathetic, he said as he went down to one knee beside her. He grabbed her by the hair and wrenched her back so she would be forced to look at him. You thought you could outsmart us, didn't you? Didn't think we'd know where you were going. Your boyfriend was bugged, officer. He led us right to you. What? Bugged? Janelle's mind reeled. All this time, and she thought it had been the horses that had given them away in Sawton. See, when they shot Jack that night, they bugged him. A new tracking device Tourette is trying out due to all the enlightenments lately. Totally undetectable. Barlow grinned. His teeth glowed yellow in the firelight. He shoved her back to the ground. Load her on the truck, and for God's sake, make sure she is secure. And that is the end of chapter 22. So this whole time, it was bloody Jack's fault. Typical. I mean, you can't blame him. He didn't know. Apparently, it's undetectable. Shush. Damn him. All right. I think it's time for a push-up break since we have 16. So, let's do that. Nailed it. Thank you again for the sub, the bits, and the redeem. I appreciate that. And we're down to 0. All right. You know, I had wondered how they were going to get back to HQ in a timely fashion. Kind of makes sense that she would just let herself get captured. Not that she really had a choice, but fitting. GG's. Thank you very much. Let's give Mama House Gaming a quick shouty while we have the opportunity, shall we? Mama House. Why am I typing it out? I should just be doing the @ sign. Come on now. Let's work smarter. Okay? There we go. Smarter, not harder, all right? Boom. There it is. If you haven't clicked the heart at the top of the screen, I encourage you to do so right meow. And where's Rexter? We haven't done Rexter either. There we go. All right. While you're enjoying the shout outs there, observing those, I'm going to keep reading. We're on page 202, chapter 23. It was rare for Tourette to order the trucks to roll out on a deep forest mission. But with the tanks clearing the way, it seemed feasible. She figured Tourette would want her back as soon as possible. The journey by truck would only take a matter of days instead of weeks by foot or by the slow horse-drawn caravans. She sat chained to the floor near the front of the caravan's covered bed of the truck. From her vantage point, leaning against the backside of the cab, she saw the landscapes receding out the back opening. A second truck followed not far behind. She pulled at her chains. They had tried the enslavement plug on her, but it did not work. She had figured it wouldn't. They had been traveling a good day and a half, nearly non-stop. She knew the routine. 2 people to a cab, each sharing driving duties. They stored extra fuel in the back since there was no refueling areas outside HQ and the trade cities. To her right and left were guards, each equipped with standard battle rifles and pistols. Once again, she had been stripped of her officer's sword. It rocked to the motion of the trucks beside the guard on her left. You're quite welcome, sir. They had allowed her to peel off her boots. Skin came off with them, but her injuries weren't too bad. I'm sorry, skin came off, but the injuries weren't bad. I'm sorry. Hey, Zarias. What's up? Gonna check out the puzzle. Not that bad. Sheesh. They had healed before morning ended the first day, although now she was barefoot, which she hated. He made her feel exposed, but they refused to get her a new pair of boots. They also refused to answer any of her questions. They wouldn't even acknowledge her presence. She's made of sterner stuff? Yes, she is. You know, I would like a program in me that heals me. I know some people call that an immune system, but I would like a better one. Thank you. For most of the trip, she thought over many things. With the others in danger, she supposed it was possible. Anyway, it didn't matter now. What was done was done. She couldn't change that, so she focused her efforts on completing her mission. Every so often, she'd repeat the 2 passwords to herself so she didn't forget them. Then, she began planning how to get to the main computer. It wouldn't be easy. Hell, it would be downright impossible, especially if Tourette did what she feared he was going to do. But she had to keep up hope. She thought out several scenarios to give herself many options. Unfortunately, most of them began with find a way to escape bonds, cell, or interrogation bed. Or, after the others free me. Things weren't going her way at all. But, she thought, it would be where I need to be, and that's one step closer to my goal. A couple of days later, the truck stopped. Someone called out, and the rumble of massive gates retracting filled the air. She was finally back home. They hadn't given her a bite to eat on the journey. Nothing but a sip of stagnant water now and then. When the guards tried to make her stand, she fell on one of them, too weak to stay upright. Her vision blackened. She felt as bad as when she'd been searching for Orion. The guard she fell into pushed her away, and she crashed into the bed of the truck. Her world spun. One man shoved her out of the back onto the gravel. Bright sunlight blinded her. For a moment, she thought she saw a dark silhouette against the sun. A bird? Barlow loomed over her. On your feet, soldier. Tourette wants to see you. She spit on his boot, or at least attempted to. Her mouth was so dry. She rolled over onto her back and stared up at him. Again, she thought she glimpsed a large bird flying overhead. Her vision was so messed up she figured her mind was playing tricks on her. Laughter bubbled its way out of her. Gods, am I going mad? That made her laugh even harder. Halo, she said. Watchdog. Janelle passed out. Little break in the story. Time has moved on. The ceiling was a sterile white. Around her, the room buzzed with electrical sounds and smelled of ozone and astringent. Jeepers. Words. With electrical sounds and smelled of ozone. Wow. Okay. You know what? We're just going to start that sentence again because I just repeated myself. Around her, the room buzzed with electrical sounds and smelled of ozone and astringent. Astringent. Still can't read. Janelle tried to lift her head but found she could not. She tried to move an arm or a leg, even her torso, but all were bound. Panic set in as she realized she was strapped, eagle spread, to an interrogation bed. She tried to thrash about, but nothing moved. A shadow fell over her, and Tourette smiled bitterly at her. "Be still," he said. He ran something cold from her neck to her inner thigh. His dagger. It touched her bare skin, leaving prickles in its wake. She was naked. He sheathed the dagger and clutched her chin roughly in his hand. "Never thought you'd end up here, did you?" He chuckled. "Neither did I. You know, I bet this would make a good sex bed. All the parts exposed, and you wouldn't be able to do a damn thing about it. Almost as fun as the enslavement plug, eh?" He touched the dagger at his waist. She tried to spit at him, but as before, her mouth was too dry. He grinned. "I remember that day at the Veiled Bells. After we are done here, if you survive, I will make you mine." "You can't control me anymore." Her words barely came out. Her scratchy throat made her cough. "Is that so?" Tourette chuckled, then grew serious. "I will break you. Just like I did to your family. Your little niece. You should have heard her scream as we cut her daddy's fingers off one by one by one." No, not her family. Rage built up within. Janelle fought against her restraints. "I swear, I will kill you," she seethed. He gave a look of mock hurt. "If you're gonna be that way, I was going to let you see see them before their execution. But I don't think so now." "I won't let you get away with this." "Like you have a choice. For your brother, it will be a mercy. His stubbornness earned him the loss of his hands and feet. The little one? What was her name? Ah, Wilhelma, isn't it? Yes, I may stay her execution, but only if you cooperate fully with me. How about it?" Janelle stared at him through a vision of red. She clenched her teeth, refusing to answer. Anger trembled through her body. "I'll take that as a no, then." He disappeared from view. A door opened. People filed in. One pushed a cart. The wheels squeaked as it rolled across the tile floor. Janelle tried to move. She knew it was in vain, but she had to remember where the bonds were. Across her forehead, just above her elbows, at her wrists. She could move her fingers, so nothing lower there. Across her shoulders, one across her chest, just below her breasts. It was a wide one. It touched the rim of her belly button when she breathed. One at each thigh and one at each ankle. All were strapped tight. If she remembered correctly, they were leather. Her vision swam as she struggled. She still had not eaten. Just straining against the restraints sapped her energy. She took a moment to wonder if the others had made it to safety, if they were on their way. She wondered how she could save her family, awaiting their doom. Tourette loomed over her again. He turned his head to address someone nearby. "Nurse Robert, we are ready to proceed. Hamilton, Sawyer, get the program ready." "Aye, sir," came a masculine reply from across the room. Hamilton, if Janelle remembered correctly. Her memory was fuzzy, but she was pretty sure Hamilton and Sawyer were programmers. A young woman's face came into view. She avoided eye contact as she taped sensors to Janelle's temple, her face grim. "I know you," Janelle said, her voice hoarse. You were there with Jack. The nurse ignored her, but pain showed on her face. More sensors were applied to Janelle's body. This was to observe different bodily functions like breathing, heart rate, and brain activity, as well as how her program reacted to the interrogation. They also stimulated or shocked different areas of the body. A man came into view, Hamilton for sure. He inserted a plug into the port behind her ear. She laughed and attempted to say, "It won't work," but the words didn't come out right. God, she was tired and thirsty. Her throat was so dry it clicked when she swallowed. Like the nurse, Hamilton avoided eye contact as well. A sudden prick to her left ear made Janelle draw in a quick breath. Since she was a prisoner and not a patient, the nurse didn't warn her before inserting an IV into the vein on the back of her hand. A couple of minutes passed, and Robert said, "She's ready, sir." Janelle wanted to look around. She wanted to stare every single person in the eye and condemn them for what they were about to do. But the damnable restraint stopped her. Tourette came into view again. He wasn't afraid to look straight into her soul. His pig eyes lit up with glee. Panic touched her heart. Panic touched her heart. "Readings are normal," said the nurse, "though her heart rate is accelerated." "Begin the drip. That'll take care of it." The solution being fed into her IV did several things. First, it slowed her heart rate and brought her body to a state of semi-consciousness, leaving her mind awake, similar to hypnosis or a waking dream. That way, they could ask her questions and she'd be able to answer. Tourette hoped to force an Enlightenment program to reveal itself to the computer by weakening the body's defenses. In the drip, a truth serum could be run to make the prisoner more cooperative when questioned. The nurse also had access to other medicines, some deadly, which could be injected if necessary. Janelle didn't even want to think of those. "Thump, thank you for the lurk, sir. I hope you are doing well." As a drip invaded her bloodstream, she heard the digital beep of her heart slow. Her breathing slowed as well. She drifted, unable to stay alert or focused. Her eyelids drooped. She tried to fight it, but she couldn't. She tried to remember her family and friends, but her thoughts became muddled. Her program, sensing no danger, refused to spring into action. It hummed behind her eyes in sleep mode. Tourette's voice cut through her thoughts. "Who enlightened you?" he asked. She tried to answer, but her throat wouldn't cooperate. She let out a single cough. Tourette repeated the question, but she could no longer speak. Her throat was a desert. "Master General, if I may," Robert said. "Perhaps a sip or two of water would help. She is severely dehydrated according to the readings, sir." Fine. Whatever." A straw touched her lips. She drew through it, nearly choking on the rush of cool water. She sucked greedily until the nurse pulled it away. "Now," Tourette said, "let's try again. Who enlightened you?" "I don't know," Janelle whispered. "You have to know. Who came in there with you?" "No one." "How did it start?" "I don't know." "Damn it!" Tourette swung out of view. "Hamilton, are you getting a connection?" "No, sir. Just like the others, all the readings are dead." "Increase the heart serum by 5%. "Yes, sir," came the reply. Her heartbeat slowed a little more. Her mind was empty. She couldn't call any thoughts to it on her own. Only questions from Tourette would recall anything. Who's behind the Enlightenment? Chris Jordison. A smile graced her lips at being able to provide this answer to him. Silence ensued, except for the digital beep of her heart. Tourette came into view. What did you say? The color drained from his face. Chris Jordison, she replied. The color raced back in a rage. He took a step backward, out of her view. Slowly increase her heart serum until the computer breaks through. His words were oddly calm. I shall return. Yes, Master General, came the unified reply. Cut out the truth serum. Concentrate on hacking into her program. I don't care if it kills her. His footsteps echoed across the room. The door opened and closed. The sound of his footsteps faded down the hall. Her awareness faded away. Janelle became drowsy, disoriented. The room spun. She thought she might throw up. That could be deadly, so she fought to keep it down. Her breathing became ragged as she struggled to maintain control of herself. Subject is in distress, the nurse said. What she did, Janelle could not see, but the dizziness passed. She walked the line between sleep and wakefulness. The beep of her heart rate slowed even more. And that brings us to chapter 24. And more push-ups. Okay. Ta-da. They're on the list. Mitchell. What good timing. I pick up my drink as you say hydrate. Good to see you. How's it going? You have points to burn? I mean, you could let them add up too. It's fine. If you want. We are on page 210. You know what that means? Yep. Only 15 pages to go. That's all. Mitchell, there's a puzzle that needs your help, if you are willing and able. Or want, for that matter. All right, folks. Here we go. Chapter 24. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Janelle wasn't sure. She never quite lost consciousness, but time had lost all meaning. Still not getting any reading, a voice said. She couldn't even remember who it was anymore. Slow it again. If I slow her heart rate any further, she will die, replied a feminine voice. Tourette's orders. Slow it again, Nurse Robert. A noise sounded, like someone standing up and moving away. I will not be a part of this any longer. There was a slam, then receding footsteps. Now what? Came a different voice. I don't know. Footsteps came closer and stopped. Pretty sure this is what she was doing. Wait, I just thought of something. What if we enter the subject's username and password? A pause. Well, it couldn't hurt. I'll look it up. Hand me the master guide. A rifling of pages sounded by an aha. Some taps on the keyboard, and finally, bingo, we're in. Sawyer, you're a genius. Wait, what's that file? Click it. Janelle's world burst into fire. She screamed and fought against the restraints as her head exploded in pain. One of her bindings gave way. The band over her right wrist snapped. She strained harder. More bands snapped. Soon she could sit upright. She tore the IV from her hand. Power surged through her, power given to her by the program. Not her personal program, but the main computer itself. It was like nothing she'd ever felt before, pulsing through her body like an electric current. She looked the room over. Her eyes fell on the two programmers. They both stood staring at her, wide-eyed with their mouths open. In a rage, she leaped off the bed and tackled them both. She bashed their heads together until the blood and bits of brain leaked from their broken skulls. Okay. That's gross. They fell like discarded rag dolls to the floor. One man had draped his overcoat over the back of the chair he'd been sitting in. She grabbed it and put it on to cover the nakedness. As she buttoned it closed, she noticed the computer blinking. She saw her homepage. Reaching up, she wrenched the plug from her ear port. Then, she smashed the computer on the floor. Her heart rate was strong now. She peeled off the few lingering sensors still attached and threw them on the floor, silencing the digital beat of her heart. With a swipe of her hand, the doctor's cart smashed to the floor. Her mind focused on one thing: destruction. But wait. She had almost forgotten. She had a mission to accomplish. What was it? Halo Watchdog, she whispered. Janelle went back to the dead men, searching one of them. She couldn't tell who was who anymore. The damage was too extensive. She found what she needed, an ID card. She used her fingers to scoop out the man's right eye. Still intact, and stuffed both items in the coat pocket. Really, Jennifer? Lovely. Oh god, it's funny. I mean, not for them. Funny for us. She needs it? Well, obviously. Because, I mean, no one just goes, you know what? I'm going to take your eye as a trophy. Unless you're a serial killer. But that's, that's a different story. She slipped out of the room and made her way to the main computer. The halls were not deserted. She drove one soldier's head into the wall. Another, an officer, lost her head with her own sword. Die with honor, Janelle sneered before beheading the girl. This is turning into an episode of Kill Bill. The sword made her passage easier. She glided along the hallway, leaving a massacre in her wake. Up ahead, two guards stood watch over the entrance to the basement stairway. Halt! One guard shouted. The other called for backup. She took them both out mid-sentence. She punched the old code into the keypad, but it didn't work. Frustrated, she slammed the sword blade into it. The resulting short popped the lock. Janelle swung the door open and padded downstairs. She had little time left. The HQ alarm sounded with an ear-piercing, let's see if I can do this justice. I mean, do you really know someone? Do you though? and a starkly rigid feminine voice saying, "Security breach." It repeated incessantly. "Shit," Janelle mumbled under her breath. She picked up her pace. That alarm would resonate throughout the whole HQ. Soldiers would arrive within minutes, if not seconds. She had to hurry. The basement was split into 2 separate sections, accessible to each other by a small door. The front section housed most of trustee vehicles. It opened onto the world via a large bay door and a ramp that led upwards. Janelle had often come in that way when reporting for updating. At the back of the garage, the small, indistinct door led to the back basement, which housed the update room and the main computer room. Coming from the interior stairs, the main computer room was closer. Janelle headed that way now. Trustee's main computer took up most of the massive room. The hardware ran hot, so the coolness of the basement had the massive fans set into the room's walls kept the computer from overheating. The lock on the door was difficult. It required a key card to be inserted. Then, a retinal scan would unlock the door. Janelle fished the card and eyeball out of the pocket of the overcoat. She inserted the card and held up the eye to the scanner, hoping it wasn't damaged or unreadable. She was rewarded with a click. As she entered the room, Janelle went over the instructions in her mind. She shut the door behind her and jammed a chair beneath the doorknob. The door would automatically lock, but she knew it wouldn't stop anyone with the key. The room was dark, cavernous. She didn't bother to turn on any lights. A few paces from the door stood the computer's access point. A large, dark computer screen accompanied by a keyboard. It took precious seconds to find the plug and insert it into her earport. Over the screaming alarm, she was sure she heard many stomping footsteps heading her way. Only seconds until they reached her. She signed onto the computer. Her homepage lit up the room. She right-clicked her file folder. The list of options came up. Which one should she click? After a moment, she remembered download file. She clicked it. A window opened, asking for her first password. She typed in Halo. A list of files appeared on the screen. Shit. Which one was it? What had Chris said? Behind her, the door clicked. Someone started beating on it. Time was almost up. Panic tried to surge through her, but Janelle forced herself to stay calm. She ran down the list of files, realizing that they were all updates to her program. The file she looked for was at the bottom of the list, below Enlightenment. It was entitled SKJ49. There you are, she said and double-clicked it. Do you wish to begin the download of file SKJ49? She clicked yes, and the virus began to download. The door shuddered under the constant barrage, yet continued to hold for a few seconds more. Then, one leg of the chair slid, and the door crashed open. Janelle glanced at the computer screen. Download complete. Do you wish to install SKJ49? Again, she clicked yes. The prompt for the second password came up. She typed Watchdog as fast as she could, but before she pressed enter, someone was upon her. Troops filed through the door, armed with battle rifles. Tourette grabbed her by the throat. What the hell are you doing to my computer? He seethed and punched her in the gut. Doubling over, she nearly lost the connection through her port. She should have fought back, but there was only one thing on her mind. Hit enter. She had to do it no matter what. Tourette's fist smashed into her face. The impact made her spin. She caught herself on the keyboard. Luckily, she hadn't hit any keys, but fuck, did that hurt. The screen flashed the entered password at her. Before Tourette could spin back for another blow, she punched the enter key. The virus quickly installed itself on the main computer. Janelle reached up to pull the plug from her port, but Tourette caught her again. He pushed her up against the computer, her throat at his huge hands, and he squeezed. That's the end of the chapter. And you know what? Just for fun, I think we'll leave it there. We'll finish this next time. I'm kidding. We're not gonna finish it next time. We're gonna finish it now. Mr. Rhino, what's up, sir? I won't be there. Going to be in Ohio. Ooh. What you gonna do in Ohio? That sounds fun. Stinker. Doing great, man. Good to see you. It's good to see you too, sir. I hope things in Canada are treating you well, that you're ready for Monday, with whatever Monday might bring. Visit my sister for 5 days for a pre-Christmas whatever. Well, that sounds cool. I hope you have a good time. I wasn't that long ago that I was in Ohio, visiting Stump Mama's mama. Got to give her a big old hug, like 3 or 4 times. It was great. Let's see, is chapter 5 the last chapter? I don't remember. I think so. It's 25 chapters, right, Jennifer? No, chapter 26. Is 26 the last chapter? I think so. All right, the last 2 chapters, which was wonderful. I agree, it was. By good graces, there will be another. Oh, speaking of the fact that I was there to do a ghost hunt at the reformatory. On January 6th, I'm doing another ghost hunt. But this one's like 20 minutes from my house. Not 9 hours or whatever. So, I'm excited for that. There's going to be an actual like team, professional ghost hunting team there, and the next morning I'll get to have brunch with them, so that's going to be cool. Some of my IRL friends are going as well. Can't wait. I don't know if I'll be able to make a really cool video out of this trip, but either way, excited. All right, here we go. The final 2 chapters. The virus invaded Janelle's program as she fought to breathe. She gasped and clawed, not at Tourette's hulking hands, but at her port, trying to tear the plug free. He shook her as he squeezed. She couldn't get a hold on the plug. Her vision blackened. Her program worked overtime to fight off the virus and to divert energies to keep her alive. The room glowed green with its efforts. Green pinpoints of light reflected in Tourette's beady eyes. "You stupid bitch," he roared. "What have you done? You stupid cunt." Something caught her eye. Gold gleamed at Tourette's waist. The damn dagger. Maybe she could reach it instead. The virus surged through her program, yet she initiated her strength sequence. The program rerouted energy to her limbs. Her vision blurred and blackened. A warm wetness dribbled down her cheeks and poured from her nose. Too thick to be tears. She grabbed for the dagger. It slipped easily from his sheath. With all her might, she plunged it into Tourette's belly, forcing the weapon further and further inwards and upwards until it reached his heart. With a final thrust, the blade pierced the beating organ. Tourette's face changed from a look of shock to slack and lifeless. He fell in a jumbled heap on the floor. Okay, so anyone that thought that Tourette would die gets 1 point. I know I get 1 point, but I don't know about you guys. The question is, will anybody else die? Janelle reached up and yanked the cord from her port. She barely noticed the troops surrounding her, their weapons limp in their hands, a slack look on their faces. She collapsed on the floor. Her thoughts jumbled as the virus fought to take over. She closed her eyes. God, she was so tired. The virus. It was winning, intertwining itself with her program. She imagined files blinking out as the virus choked them. She didn't know what to do. What would happen to her? Would her corrupted program drive her mad? Would it kill her? The program was trying to surround and quarantine the virus, but it wasn't fast enough. The virus replicated before it was isolated. Then it hit her Enlightenment folder. The folder burst open, spreading light behind her eyes. Everything went dark. We have a bit of time that passes in the story. Someone touched her face. Janelle? Came a questioning voice, a familiar voice. She couldn't open her eyes, or were they open and she couldn't see? Janelle, can you hear me? The words sounded hollow, far away to her ears. Gods, her head hurt. She struggled to gather her thoughts. Her mind was strangely barren. There was no background activity, no humming from the program. Her mind was silent, but it felt like someone had driven a hot poker into the center of her forehead. A single memory entered her mind then, of staring up at the sun while on HQ soil and seeing a bird soaring overhead. No, not a bird. A dragon. She tried to sit up, but her arms held her, wrapped around her, calmed her. Are you? Came the voice again. I can't see, she said, grabbing those arms. Your eyes are wrapped in cloth to protect them, babe. Now she knew who spoke, who held her. Jack, is that you? Yes. You did it, babe. You infected the computer. Everyone is free. His voice cracked. Something wet dripped onto her cheek. What happened? Am I blind? We don't know yet. No, don't struggle. He clutched her to him. You're bleeding internally, from everywhere. Chris went with a couple of programmers to acquire an uninfected computer from storage at the garage. They'll be back soon. Blood gushed from her nose. A cry escaped Jack's throat. Someone hand me a cloth, he shouted. His words choked. Blood trickled down the back of her throat. Janelle coughed and swallowed it. She reached up and touched her ears. Blood leaked from them as well. Something soft touched her nose. I keep wiping it off, Jack said, but it still keeps coming. I can't get it to stop. His voice hitched. A few more hot drops hit her face. She reached up and touched his cheek with her fingers. They came away wet. Jack was crying. I don't know what to do, he whispered. I don't know how to get it to stop. Don't try, she said. Just hold me. Tell me what happened. Is Tourette dead? He sniffled. Yeah, the bastard's dead. You gutted him. A rumbling sound from the hall. Out of my way! Coming through! Someone shouted. The spinning of squeaky wheels and the drumming of footsteps moved closer. Someone spoke out of breath. Got one. Let's see what we can do. It's an older model. Chris. Does it work? Jack asked. I guess we'll find out. Thomas, plug the cord into the outlet there. Yes, ma'am. An unfamiliar voice replied. How is she? Chris asked, her voice closer, right overhead. Awake, Jack replied. Janelle, I'm going to insert a probe into your earport, okay? You need to lie still. The probe slid in, but it didn't feel right. A bright burst of pain exploded in her head. She cried out and tried to pull out the probe. No, Jack, restrain her. Janelle, it has to stay in. It hurts, she cried. The pain flared through her head like daggers stabbing into her brain from all directions. A wet warmth crept from her eyes, ears, and nose. Chris, she's bleeding again. I see that. Thomas, hurry. Is there a connection? Oh, move out of the way. I'll do it myself. Janelle tried to remain calm, tried to keep still, but the pain was agonizing. Someone was screaming to pull it out. Pull it out. It took her a moment to realize it was her. Keep her still, Chris said. Just a minute, Janelle. It'll only be another minute. I've got a reading. The virus damaged a large percentage of your program files. I'm not sure if I can fix them. The sound of her fingers flying over the keys reached Janelle's ears. She moaned and held tightly to Jack's arms. Let me pull up a brain scan and try to see where all this blood is coming from. The room remained silent except for the tapping of keys and Janelle's moans. Nurse? Is there a nurse here? Yes, ma'am, came a familiar voice. Nurse Robert, ma'am. Please, go get me a nanite healing shot. One to inject directly into the program. Understand? Yes, ma'am. Robert's footsteps quickly faded. Janelle tugged at Jack's arm. She tried to kill me, she whispered. In the interrogation room. Chris replied. No more worries about that, child. The program's mind control is dead. Oh, that's good. She settled back, wishing the pain in her head would stop. She couldn't concentrate on anything. Janelle heard footsteps getting closer. Ah, she returns, Chris said. Here you go, ma'am. Thank you. Now, Janelle, this is going to hurt. A lot. But it should help your body heal the brain lesions. The probe slipped out. With it came a little relief as the dagger stopped. Then the needle slipped in, and her head erupted in pain. Janelle screamed until blessed oblivion took her. That's chapter 25. Okay. This is it. This is the chapter you've all been waiting for. Is she gonna make it? My gut says yes. Ladies and gentlemen, the final chapter of the Enlightenment virus. Exclamation point virus to check out our author and her work. Chapter 26 starts on page 221 of the printed copy. Here we go. Red. She saw red, and blotches of black that moved across the inside of her eyelids. Janelle raised a hand to her face. The cloth covering her eyes was gone. She cupped her hands over her face and opened her lids just a sliver. She didn't hurt anymore. Her headache was gone. Her vision had returned. She opened her eyes all the way. The room appeared fuzzy at first. She blinked it clear. It was then she realized the steady hum behind her eyes was back. Her program was running. She looked around. The room was softly lit. A line of sunshine poured across her bed from a nearby window on her right. To her left, an IV dripped medication that fed into her hand. Beyond that, Jack sprawled in a chair. She smiled. He looked so peaceful, so innocent, so young. She wondered if she had looked the same to him. It felt as if a tremendous burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Her mission was complete. Tourette was defeated, and the program no longer controlled the soldiers. Jack stirred in his sleep. She made a move to sit up, and his eyes popped open. "Janelle?" he said. He sat up straight. "You're awake. How are you feeling?" "Better than I've felt in a long time. But gods, am I starving. I don't even remember when I ate last. Last ate. You've been out for a week, so it's no wonder. They've been feeding you intravenously, but that's no substitute for proper food. Hang on. Let me go get Chris and Nurse Robert." Janelle frowned. Robert. Jack obviously saw her scowl, for he said, "She's been watching over you since you passed out. She's not a bad person. She warned me back some time ago what would happen if they caught you. She was forced to give you the drugs during the interrogation. Just following orders," Janelle mumbled. She sighed. "She did leave the room during the interrogation because she didn't want to give me any more drugs. I do remember that. If she'd stayed, I would have killed her. I saw what you did to the two programmers," he said, his voice quiet, somber. "You massacred a dozen or more people on your quest to get to the main computer room." He took a deep breath. "But let me go get Chris. I'll be right back, promise." He laid a kiss on her forehead and darted from the room. Janelle sat up as much as she could. Her head throbbed a little, but it didn't quite hurt. Her gaze fell on the window. A silhouette in the sky drew her attention. She wasn't sure, but she thought it might be Jinshin. "It is." The words flowed into her mind. "Jinshin," she whispered. "I'm so sorry I lost your scale." "I have others," the dragon said with a chuckle. "You brought me here, didn't you? My friends? I saw you." You brought them here, not me here, jeez. "Yes. Chris called me from deep within the eastern hedges. I flew them here." "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for helping me with my mission." The silhouette dipped in the sky. "It's not over yet. I have one more thing to ask of you." "Anything." "The people of this land need a real leader, a compassionate leader. If you lead them, you can lift Bravia from the sediment and make it great again." Janelle paled. "I'm not so sure. Chris already asked me." "The people love you. Yes, the challenge will be great, but I believe you are up to the task. Trust in me." Janelle smiled. "That's what you said when we first met. And everything turned out okay, nay?" "Yes. Yes, it did." The door to her room flew open. The silhouette dipped toward her, then vanished. "Janelle, darling." Someone rushed to her side, followed by an out-of-breath Nurse Robert. "I'm so sorry," the nurse said. "I tried to stop him." Janelle's mouth dropped open in complete surprise. She waved the nurse away. "Flavius? Oh, gods, Flavius!" The flamboyant tailor wrapped his arms around her. "Reports said you were dead." "Reports about my death were greatly exaggerated," he said, holding her tightly. "Alas, it was poor Yeza." "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss." Janelle squeezed him a little harder. More people filed into the room with Flavius backed off, a grin plastered to his face. "Oh, this is so exciting. The beginning of a new era." Janelle smiled. Nurse Robert rushed to her side. I need to take a few readings," she said, pulling out a handheld computer. Janelle allowed her to insert the probe while she looked over the small crowd gathered inside the door. Jack, Chris, Flavius, and Orion. She noticed Chris held tight to Orion's hand. Her smile broadened. "Everything looks good," Robert said. "Janelle, if I may," she looked at her feet. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for what happened. I hope you can forgive me." Janelle reached out her hand and touched the nurse's wrist. "Of course I do," she said warmly. "I, of all people, know the evils of Tourette's program. I hope we can be the best of friends." Robert smiled. "Me too," she said. Then everyone crowded around. Jack sat on her bed. "I took the liberty of ordering you some food," he said. "Thank you." Chris and Orion came forward. "I'm so glad you're okay," Chris said. "We couldn't repair all of your program files, at least not yet, but we are able to salvage most of them." Jack said from beside her, "Your healing and strength files were okay." "Janelle," Chris interjected, "we plan on meeting within the next few days to elect a new leader. We are going to implement an election day throughout Bravia. Would you be interested in running?" Come on. You know the people love you," Jack said. "You'd win by a landslide." "Chris, why don't you run?" The woman shook her head. "I prefer to work behind the scenes. I would happily take on the role of advisor, though, if you wish." "Let me think about it," Janelle said. "I'm so hungry right now. Wouldn't want to make any decisions on an empty stomach." Chris smiled. "I understand. By the way, there's a little guest outside wanting to see you." The door opened a crack. "May I come in now?" a small voice asked. Janelle's eyes lit up. "Willie? Is that you?" Her niece entered the room and threw herself into Janelle's arms. Tears streamed down her little face as she sobbed on her shoulder. "He's gone, Janelle. My dad is gone." Janelle sat her jaw as she hugged her niece. She recalled what torture Tourette had put her brother through. Hugging Willie, she looked up at Chris. "Let's do this," she said. "Let's change this country for the better and bring hope and prosperity back to the people." "So, you'll run?" "You bet your ass I will. And I will win." The end. The Enlightenment virus. Good job, Jennifer. Heck of a story. You did it. Trying to figure out which story I liked more, the game which we read or this one. I liked them both. So there it is, folks. That is the end of our book. And, I said I would remind you. I mentioned this at the beginning of stream. I want to mention it now before we're raiding out. I'm not going to start the next book, which, just for memory's sake, is right here. Honest Deceit, Part 1. There's 3 parts to this story. But we're not going to start that until January, just because of the holidays coming in. You know, there's Christmas, there's New Year's. I don't want to get a few chapters in, and then have to stop for a week or so. So we'll play a few games before we're done streaming for the end of the year kind of thing. But we'll start that book up first, as soon as we can in January, basically. Fun fact, I originally had Jack save her from Tourette and ask her to marry him at the end. Then I changed it to make her a strong female character. Ooh, I like that. Well done. Thank you for sharing your book with us. Yes, absolutely. Thank you indeed for letting me read another one of your books. I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, and I'm glad to have read it, so thank you, newbie. Okay. Well, on that note, it's almost 9:30. It's a good time to find someone to raid. I'll leave the puzzle up as I normally do in case anyone wants to do it. In the spirit of reading, it looks like David Air on the Air is doing some reading. And of course, he's reading Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Good night, newbie. Thank you for hanging out. I hope you have a good rest of your evening. Alright. Come join me in this raid if you wish. If not, I appreciate you being here. Thank you again for the redeems, for the bits and the subs. I will see you Thursday. We'll be playing Power Wash Simulator. I unlocked a new DLC for that, so wait and see on that one. But until then, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and you have a fantastic night. Good night.
And a crutch without an owner.